All right. So, I wanted to share with you this morning's thought download. Now, something that I always share and that I'm going to continue to share is that we really need to bring awareness to what our brains are thinking and what kind of like thought patterns that we've built throughout our lives. Because if we don't understand what's going on in there, we don't really get to um, it's harder to really make the life that you want to make and create better relationships and do better in your work and better as a husband, father, whatever it is. It's just like everything that we do and don't do is created by our thoughts. So if you don't know what's going on up there, it's helpful to write things down. You got to be able to write things down. You can check my other post on awareness. That is super helpful in bringing awareness, understanding why we need it and how to do it. So, needless to say, I wrote down my thoughts this morning, and lately I've been having a hard time getting to bed at a time that I'd like, or having a nightly routine, because I know that I have a good morning routine, but when it comes to nightly routine, it's kind of like I drag my feet, and but I want to get to bed earlier because I want to sleep more. Sleep is good. Sleep is really good. So, I was writing down just like my thoughts around getting to bed at a good time. And one of the thoughts that jumped out at me was my wife Morgan will be upset if I move on to my nightly routine. So that was my thought. And it's important that we take the thought and we recognize, okay, what are the facts? What's the circumstance here? And the circumstance is just going to bed. So it's pretty neutral. It's bedtime, going to bed. And for some reason, I have the thought, Morgan will be upset if I move on to a nightly routine. She likes to stay up. She's a night owl. So it's like, I think, okay, she'll be upset if I just like go to bed. And the thing about it is, and what's nice to do is to even like push further and question, the thoughts that you have. And so I said, okay, so what? So what if she's upset? What's the big deal? And to answer that question, like I thought to myself, okay, if she's upset, um, then I'm not a good husband. Like that's how I usually feel. Is that if I and I'm like definitely it's like people pleasing is something that we just grow up with. It is something that it's like you grow up, and when you do something for someone, um, that they want you to do, and then they reward you with praise and adoration and whatever it is that's good, a reward of some sort. We all just kind of learn to people please and to do what other people like you to do just so that they can be happy. And we think that other people's actions make us happy and that our actions make people happy or influence their feelings. When the truth is, at all times, we choose how we feel. And the same thing goes for every other person. It's like I could do all this good stuff for someone and they could choose to feel indifferent. Or I could do all this, hurtful stuff towards someone and they can choose to feel indifferent. Or they could choose to feel just fine, like you could brush it right off. Some people take criticism really hard versus some people take criticism and they're grateful for it. So it's like, how is that possible? Well, it's possible only because people choose the way in which they think, and those thoughts directly impact how they feel. So it's like no matter what I do to, you know, it's like I could shout at my kids or I could shout at my wife, and in a way it's like, yeah, okay, they can choose how they feel, right? But it's like I do want to create a great home. I do want to be a good husband. I do want to be, I have this vision of what a good husband is. And so the idea of like if my wife's upset, there is just this correlation in my brain that says, okay, if she's upset, I'm not a good husband. Now, when we have any thought that's like, I'm not good enough, I'm not good in any way, um, usually the feeling that comes up is a feeling of shame. And Brene Brown talks a lot about this. It's just this feeling of feeling flawed, that you are not whole, you're not worthy of love and belonging. And so, For me, I feel this feeling of shame or feeling, um, yeah, I would say that was probably the biggest feeling. So, needless to say, when I feel shame, it's like and in this situation, it's like how do I act? It's like, well, shame usually like causes me to hide, um, but in this situation, it's just like it causes me to give in. I give in to maybe her demands. I live in an inauthentic way. It's like shame doesn't help me to be more of who I am, like who I really want to be. And the result is if I'm like living inauthentically, then I'm not as good of a husband. And so essentially, the thought, if Morgan's upset, I'm not a good husband, how makes me feel shame or like creates a feeling of shame. And then I show up in an inauthentic way, not the best way. And then I'm not as good of a husband. So it's like the thought creates the result in the end. So I thought, okay, what would I rather think? What would I rather feel? And with this situation of just going to bed, right? I'm just trying to go to bed. And I think some of the thoughts that I wrote down, I wrote, she gets to choose how she feels. It's like if she wants to be upset, then she can. It's like I want to do this nightly routine, and I know that if I follow through on my own routine, then I'm going to be a better husband. Then I'm going to be able to get the sleep that I need. I'm going to be able to show up in a way that I think is more genuine, more authentic, more who I am. And so it's like, and then another thought that I thought would be good is just like I'm just here. It's like she's just there for me to love. You know, it's like I just love my wife, and I get to just like, and she can choose how she feels, and I'm just gonna go to bed. And so it's like the feeling is love, and then action is tell her going to bed, give her a big hug, and the result is just love. So I want to like flesh that out, and I know over time, if you keep watching this, you'll see just the model that I use, just how we have circumstances and they trigger thoughts. We choose these thoughts. These thoughts drive our feelings. Those feelings drive our actions, and those actions create our results. And so, being able to recognize, okay, what thoughts am I thinking today? How are they impacting me? How are they impacting my feelings, my actions and results? And then what would I rather think, feel, do, and the results that would come from that. Now, one thing I'll mention in terms of like people pleasing, because I'm like studying this a lot actually, and just kind of three quick things. One is that we have to get to a place where we just love ourselves, and not like vain or narcissistically, not like that, but more so it's like genuinely believing that no matter what we do or don't do in life, we are worthy. We're 100% worthy. Nothing changes that. It's like me, whether I'm successful or not successful, it's like nothing changes my worth because I'm a child of God, and no matter what, I am loved, and I was created by a loving Heavenly Father. And so it's just like when you really understand that, it's like when you really allow that to be there, then we don't search for other people's feelings of us, like whether they like us or not. That doesn't like impact how we show up in the world. It's like if I know that I'm loved no matter what, then I don't have to try and manipulate someone else to feel loved. If that makes sense. So another thing is letting others choose how they feel, right? And so that's super important because, if we go around about our lives thinking that, if I don't show up in a way that they like, um, then it's just like then I'm impacting how they feel. When the truth is, at all times they get to choose how they feel, and so I just need to worry about me. Need to just worry about me showing up as my best self, and even if I mess up or don't do something that they like, I could remind someone of their fifth grade teacher that they hate, that they hated as a kid, and they could just choose to think negative thoughts about me no matter what I do, no matter how good I am. So It's just like let others choose how they feel, and then it's kind of one of those things where you just like let it go. And lastly, number three, that was number two, is let others choose how they feel. Number three is others are there to love. So more so the idea of like we shouldn't have all these expectations of how people should act. We should just be there to love them. So it's like my wife is just there for me to love her. And that's a very freeing thought, a very freeing kind of philosophy or a perception or a belief to have, because then, she doesn't need to do anything to, you know, she doesn't need to do anything to deserve my love or to obtain it. She just gets to show up as she is, whether or not she, you know, does the laundry or doesn't do the laundry, whether or not she makes dinner or doesn't make dinner. When I get home from work, it's like it doesn't matter. I just get to show up and love her as she is. And that's really nice. And it's nice to be the receiver of that too. That just like you can show up as your authentic self. And, if you don't want to do something, that you can still be loved. So, needless to say, hope that helps. That's just something that I found today and this morning, just as I was writing things out, that a lot of times we try and people please, and we people please our spouse too. So consider the idea that one, being able to recognize that you are 100% worthy of love and belonging no matter what, that other people's feelings are determined by their own thoughts, not your actions. And then just, being there to love people actually frees you from the people pleasing chains. So, hope that makes sense. And we will talk to you again tomorrow.